It was my first time as a manager, and I was a total people pleaser. Anyone? Conflict avoider, but also soft-spoken kind of a person. One day, my boss told me that the big boss, the CFO, wanted to speak to me. I had never spoken to the CFO before. So the CFO went to meet the CFO, and the CFO said, "Ivna, I hear that you have a position available in your team. Here's my nephew's CV. He's a bright, smart, talented young man. He'd be perfect for your role." So I quickly scanned over through the CV, right? And I knew, this was not the one for my job. But how do I tell this to the big boss, the CFO, who just so happens to be 70 years old? So, to stay safe and not burn any bridges, I said, all right, okay, I'm going to carefully examine your nephew's CV. And then, I made my escape. A few days later, tried to escape, but didn't work. A few days later, he called back and said, "Ivna, you saw my nephew's CV. Isn't he just perfect for your role?" I knew in my gut that the answer was a big fat no. But if I said it, was he going to hold any grudges or make my life a living nightmare? I had no idea. All I knew was that hiring the freaking wrong person was going to cost me my precious time, energy, and my team's productivity. It was like a game of career roulette, and I was holding my breath, hoping for the best. So I told him, all right, well, I told him that I had carefully looked at his nephew's CV, and let's just say it wasn't the perfect fit. But the look on his face was priceless, just like when my mom used to catch me in the marshmallow jar. So I backpedaled. I was scared. And I told him, all right, well, I want to give your nephew a chance. So I'll bring him in for an interview. Spoiler alert, it was a complete train wreck. Well, a few weeks later, the CFO calls me again to his office. "Ivna, I heard that you interviewed my nephew and that it went really, really well." Seriously? Third time? How can we speak up when we don't feel safe? How can nurses challenge doctors when they suspect medical mistakes without being punished? How can women talk about harassment without experiencing backlash? How could the Space Shuttle Challenger engineers who knew that space shuttle was going to blow up during launch speak out against potential dangers without coming across as insubordinate or even losing their jobs? These are all vital questions that need to be answered so that we can truly make our voices heard and feel empowered to speak up and make a difference. Staying silent is like giving someone else the remote to control our lives. It robs us from self-respect. It allows precious opportunities to slip right through our fingers, and allows others to walk all over our hard-earned red carpets with dirty feet. But I get it. Speaking up is like jumping off a cliff, hoping that the paraglide is going to work. It's straight up terrifying and uncomfortable. But imagine if we could speak our minds without any hesitation, apology, or fear. Imagine being able to unlock our wildest dreams, create opportunities left and right, and be treated with the respect that we deserve. Imagine supercharging our contributions. Imagine taking risks became the most wondrous adventures. Imagine being treated like a VIP at work. And that is why I believe that every single one of us deserves to know the secret recipe to knowing how to speak up safely, so that we can choose to represent ourselves like the champions that we are. Aren't we champions? Yeah. And I have found that the answer to being able to have these hard conversations safely, you've all heard of it, is psychological safety. But not only through a top-down leadership approach. Now, sure, our leaders are supposed to be our superhero psychological safety nets. But leaders can't always make us feel safe. Why is that? Well, like all superheroes, they're not always on duty, and sometimes they're too busy fighting other important battles. Sometimes creating psychological safety just isn't at the top of their to-do lists. And even when they're on the job, they can't be everywhere all the time. Leaders can't be our personal protective bodyguards in every conversation, in every meeting, in every conflict that we experience. Leaders are humans too. Just like us, they too have bad days and conflicting interests. So it's not always a sure thing that leaders can make us feel safe. So, the burning question is, if leaders can't always make us feel safe to speak up, what's the question? Is it possible to create our own psychological safety so that we can speak up freely and fearlessly whenever we want to? And the answer is, get what the answer is? Yes, it is possible. You might be thinking, great, Ivna, this sounds amazing. How do we do it? I don't know how to do this. And the answer is to safe speak. And today, I'll be sharing with you 3 steps to safe speaking and 5 principles to implement safe speaking into our daily lives. Are you ready? Number 1. If I didn't know the skill of speaking up, and in this case saying no to the CFO, I would have had to hire the nephew. And that's why the first step to safe speaking is to learn all the different ways in which we can speak up and the skills associated with them. It's like having a toolbox full of speaking up tools, like how to say no without hurting any feelings, disagreeing without being a total jerk, giving negative feedback without coming across as, a cranky person. Speaking up skills like challenging others, asking hard questions, and asking for what we want. Speaking up skills like making hard decisions and communicating those decisions like a CEO. Expressing anger and frustration without losing our cool. And communicating concerns, negative news, and even mistakes that we make without, or even better, making people want to high-five us even though we made a mistake. It is possible. When we learn all these skills, it's like having a speaking up buffet, and we get to pick and choose what works best for us. My question for you is, are you honing your speaking up skills so that when you need to use them, you're ready? Number 2, if I hadn't empathized with the CFO, I would have accidentally offended him. And that's why the second step to safe speaking is to use our empathy skills to vaccinate against retaliation, because empathy allows us to de-threaten our communication. Empathy is like having a crystal ball that allows us to understand what makes people feel threatened so that we can design our communication in the way that makes people feel like they're hanging out with us on a beach vacation having margaritas and chatting when we speak up rather than being in war. Because when people feel threatened, they're more likely to retaliate. Because the only logical solutions in their mind is to eliminate the source of threat, and that's us. That's where I disagree can come across as you're stupid. No to a superior might be seen as challenging their royal highness. In Maya Angelou's words, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that is why speaking up safely with others is as simple as helping others feel safe when we speak to them. Now, are you using your empathy skills when you speak up to actually help others feel safe with you? Number 3, if I hadn't asserted my no, then I would have lost that negotiation for sure. That's why the third step to safe speaking is to be assertive. Now, assertiveness is the skill of speaking up directly in a way that is calm, effective, and respectful. When we're not assertive, people take advantage of us. When we are assertive, people respect us. Are you being assertive when you speak up? Assertive and strong. Now, you remember the CFO who wouldn't let it go about having me hire his nephew for the 3rd time? Well, I was freaking out and I had butterflies doing the cha-cha in my stomach. So I put on my best diplomatic smile and I thanked him for sharing his nephew's CV. And I told him that the kid had the energy of a caffeinated kangaroo and the career potential of a young Elon Musk. But that, as I had suspected, the position just wasn't a great fit for his goals, for his skills, or frankly for the company. Well, finally the CFO agreed and accepted my decision. And we never spoke again. But you wouldn't imagine what happened next. Just a few months later, that same CFO wrote and signed a contract where the company was exceptionally loaning me 2.5 times my annual salary, with amazing terms, by the way, for me to quit, leave my job, and go do an MBA. Can you imagine? Isn't that crazy? Well, psychological safety starts with us. Speaking up isn't dangerous. It's when people feel endangered that things get unsafe. To speak up safely with others, help others feel safe with us. Now, it worked out with the CFO, right? But how can we actually implement this into our daily lives? Well, here are 5 safe speaking principles to keep in mind. Number 1, swap assumptions for curiosity about others. So for example, if someone ghosts us, it doesn't mean they don't care about us or that they're being inconsiderate. It's way too easy to jump to false conclusions about people, and that's not great. And that's where the good old curiosity comes in. I noticed that you didn't reply to my email, or any of my messages. Is there a reason for that? Did you get my message? Curiosity helps us debunk those false assumptions that we make about people. Number 2, swap expectations about what people should know about us for us over-communicating what we want people to know about us. Because over-communication is key to making sure that people understand what we think, want, and need from them. Because people, not mind readers, luckily, whether it's an opportunity where we're the obvious choice for, or whether it's something that we're entitled to, or something that our team should know that they need to do, we still need to directly communicate what we want people to know. That's our responsibility, not theirs. Number 3, swap hesitation for conviction. I don't know. What do you think? I'm not sure. I don't feel good about this. Compare it with, if we launch tomorrow, I'm convinced that the space shuttle is going to blow up given the cold temperatures on the O-ring. I strongly advise against launching. Hesitation is the kryptonite to influence. The more conviction we have, the more we inspire trust and authority, and the more people will listen to us and take us seriously. Number 4, swap generics for specifics. I'm concerned. All right, what are you concerned about today? So many possibilities. I'm concerned about the impact of this dosage of this drug on this patient, given this diabetes level when they do this operation. Whew, it might sound like a mouthful, but it will keep the patient safe. Specifics are the direct line to understanding to avoid confusion. They're the salt, pepper, and spices to our messaging. And 5, last one. Let's swap sternness for connection. Let's speak up in the spirit of collaboration and up the finesse factor by leading with connection, common ground, shared goals, and encouragement. So instead of barking, you're wrong, how about, I want to make sure that we're successful here together, and that's why I want to be on the same page with you. Well, that sounds warmer and more inviting. Let's strive for 3-course meals of connection, before, during, and after we speak up. All right. Now, one day my team came to me and they said they wanted a meeting. And I had no idea what this was about. So they started off by thanking me for everything I had done for them. Connection. Then they told me that they were all in for hard work, but that it was taking a serious toll on their personal lives because of all the unplanned evening work that we had. Over communication. I was surprised, but it didn't stop there. Then they said, okay, they asked me, what are you trying to achieve here for the team? Curiosity. I talked about my expansion goals, and they seemed to empathize. And then they hit me with the hard truth. They shared several examples of when I had assigned them work that never got used. It's kind of embarrassing. Specifics. And then they challenged me as their boss to be more selective around the work that we took on as a team. And for me to say no to my superiors more often, which was very hard to do. And they were right. And that's what was them being assertive. They were right, and I started to implement those changes, and soon enough, they weren't working as hard. They were being recognized, and we were growing as a team faster than ever before. Let's shatter the silence and unleash our voices, regardless of our leaders. Psychological safety starts with us. We don't have to choose between speaking up and feeling disrespected, or not speaking up and disrespecting ourselves. Let's choose to safe speak our mighty minds, honor our voices, and contribute our unique perspectives. Let me end with this. Imagine a world where safe speaking reigns, where everyone is free to speak their minds, where diversity is celebrated and ideas are shared and concerns are expressed without fear or despair, where empathy and assertiveness intertwine and all voices are free to be their one of a kind. We have the innate ability to empathize. Let's use it to design our own safety skies. With this power, we can create a society where we can't ignore each voice and personality, where connection, unity, and respect are the norm, and safe speaking guides us through any storm. Thank you.